Hello, my name is the Reverend Alen McCulloch and I'm presently Parish Minister of Burnry and Lochmaddy, linked with Kilmuir and Pable Church of Scotland. I'm also at the moment the interim moderator for Benbecula, linked with Carnish Churches of Scotland. I live in the manse up the road here in Pable on the Isle of North Uist, and I've brought along one or two items to show you in terms of the life of my late grandfather on my father's side. His name was Dr. Joseph McCulloch. He was actually born in Philadelphia. His family had emigrated, as so many Scots did, in the 1880s, 1890s. He was born in 1892, I believe. But very unusually, at the age of only 6 months, he and his parents came back across the Atlantic. We're not sure why. There is some kind of family legend about a strong matriarchal arm reaching across the Atlantic because she didn't approve of somebody's proposed marriage, and back they came. We're not just sure how or why, but anyway, he had American citizenship until 1915. So he was brought up in Ayr on the west coast of Scotland. After leaving Ayr Academy, he went to be a medical student at Glasgow University. He qualified in medicine just in time for the First World War. So with so many of his generation, he volunteered straight away to serve in the British Army. He wanted to be a medical officer, of course, because he was a doctor, but he was turned down on grounds of eyesight in 1914. He always wore much thicker glasses than I have presently, and so he had to do something else. So he took a passage as a ship's surgeon to what was then called Burma and back, and volunteered again in early 1915. This time, eyesight wasn't a problem because, of course, they would have lost so many medical officers in the early months of the First World War. So this is his commission certificate, and it's dated the 23rd of February 1915. There is at least one very interesting thing about this. One is that in red it says temporary up at the top right there. I think that's possibly Army shorthand for don't think you're going to get a regular commission and a pension at the end of the day out of this, even if you do survive the First World War. Well, he did thankfully survive the First World War when so many didn't. I'm thinking particularly of those from here on North Uist and Burnry, whose names are on the respective war memorials at Clachan and North Uist and Church Road, Burnry. He survived the war, and later in life, after my grandmother died in 1973, he came to live with us for the last several years of his life, and very unusually for any veteran of any war, but maybe particularly the First World War. As I was growing up, I would have been 10 in 1973 when Granny died. So during my early teenage years, he used to tell me all about the First World War from his experiences. I can remember vividly some very gory stories, which I'm not going to share in this recording because you'd have to preface it with some listeners may find some of the detail very distressing, and it would be. But in fact, just as much as talking about the horror and the bloodshed involved, which he witnessed, of course, as a doctor firsthand, he also spoke just as much about the humour in the trenches and just as much about the tremendous bond, the tremendous esprit de corps, the tremendous camaraderie that was formed in this crucible of suffering that was the Western Front in the First World War. He came back from the war. He worked in various places, including Tinnabruach in Argyllshire, but then in 1928 settled in Dumbarton on the banks of the River Clyde, just west of Glasgow. When I go on battlefield tours to the sites, to the places, to the events of the First World War, I think of my grandfather. There he is in his First World War Army uniform with those glasses I mentioned earlier on. And on Remembrance Sunday, I sometimes wear his medals on the right-hand side because you wear your own medals on the left-hand side, so his medals go there sometimes on Remembrance Sunday. When I go to the Somme, for example, I always visit the memorial to those lost from 5-1 Highland Division. There you can see in a battlefield tour guide to the Somme the 5-1 Highland Division memorial there with a kilted Highlander on the top of this huge granite memorial. One of the panels on that memorial has a very important saying in Gaelic, and that's my photograph of that panel on that memorial. And those who have Gaelic will of course be able to read that and understand it. I believe the English translation would be something like, "Friends are good on the day of battle." He married my grandmother, who was also a doctor, Dr. Marjorie McCulloch, and they lived in Dumbarton the rest of their lives until they came to live in Cardross in 1971. And when he retired from general practice in Dumbarton, he was given, this was made by the nuns in the local convent in Dumbarton, he was given this beautiful illuminated script which shows Dumbarton, Dumbarton Rock, Dumbarton Castle, which shows Edinburgh Castle, because my grandmother, having been brought up in Fort William, studied in Edinburgh. You can see my grandmother's MBE mentioned there. And on this side, of course, there's an American flag, because remember, he was an American citizen because he was born in Philadelphia. He had to renounce his American citizenship in 1915 in order to be commissioned into the British Army. The nuns have made a fantastic job of this. You can see things like a thermometer in a glass and a stethoscope around the illuminated script as well. I hope that's been of some interest to you. Thank you.